Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the first session of the second day of our international conference. Today's session is on the travels of Atisa Dipankara, Srijana. Our moderator is Venerable Tenzin Lekzom. Panelists in today's session are Venerable Professor Kaveri Gill, Dr. Elizabeth Inandiak, and Ms. Nazneen Haque Mimi. May I request all the panelists to please take their seats on the dais. Allow me to briefly introduce our panelists. The moderator, Venerable Tenzin Lekzom, is an Australian Nepalese Buddhist monastic pursuing advanced studies in Tibetan Buddhist philosophy at Jamyang Choling Institute, Dharamsala. Her current focus is on the definitive and interpretable teachings of the Buddha within the Nalanda tradition. She has earned a bachelor's in studies in religion from the University of New England and prior to ordination worked in civil engineering. She now teaches science and Nalanda debate, blending analytical reasoning, contemplative insight, and modern pedagogy in her monastic community. Welcome, Venerable Tenzin, and we are very honored that you are moderating today's first discussion. Dr. Elizabeth Inandiak is a French writer and community builder who has lived in Indonesia since 1990, working closely with village communities affected by natural and human-made disasters. Deeply committed to intercultural and interfaith dialogue, she collaborates with local groups to preserve oral traditions, promote reconciliation, and rebuild lives through collective storytelling and education. In Muara Jambi, Sumatra, she co-founded the House of Local Wisdom and Peace, fostering understanding and cooperation between Buddhist and Muslim communities. Welcome, Dr. Inandiak. Venerable Professor Kaveri Gill has been here with us yesterday, so may we move ahead. Thank you. Ms. Nazneen Haque Mimi, who has come here from Bangladesh, is a writer, columnist, and designer who has researched and published on heritage architecture. She has traveled widely to document the Buddhist heritage of Asia, including to Laos, Japan, Nepal, Burma, and Sri Lanka. She is the author of several books on history, and her personal reflections on places she has visited are found in her book, Glimpses of Asia, a Travel Journal. I understand the artifacts from Bangladesh in the exhibition have also been brought by you. So thank you, Ms. Nazneen. Welcome. Over to you, Venerable Tenzin Lekzom.
So good morning, everyone. I hope you had a very meaningful day one of the conference, and welcome to day two. So today, our first session on the life and legacy of Atisa is going to be on travels. And we have very wonderful speakers here today. And we've heard a lot about Atisa's life from yesterday and also in our own studies as well. And we see in the journey of Atisa's life, there were a lot of travels, long travels. We know about the travel to Indonesia that he did in order to learn about bodhicitta, so how important it was for him to find a reliable teacher, someone who would practice bodhicitta genuinely and to really learn from that teacher. And he made such a long and arduous journey all the way to Indonesia. And we had some presenters yesterday talk about this as well, right? So back in the day, it wasn't like now, or you have a flight or Air India or Indigo to travel to these faraway places. So it's a very different time, and the determination that it required to travel this long journey is very inspiring. And then later in life, you also traveled to Tibet, right? In order to benefit. So I really look forward to hearing about what our speakers have to share and learning from you today. So our first speaker is going to be Venerable Professor Kaveri Gill. So I'll hand over to you.
Is my presentation loaded? So thank you so much. So I would like to begin by reciting the refuge verse that we were told is attributed to Master Atisa. Sange chodang sogi chognam la, jangcho badu dagni kapsochi, dagi jinsog gipe soknamki, dola venture sange du parshog. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulations of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. So I would like to begin by thanking the organizer of this conference, Shri Arun Kapoorji of SEP, and Ambassador Sham Saranji of India International Center, the extraordinarily energetic and aesthetically inclined Thupten Thewak, and all the many organizers who have made this absolutely stupendous two-day conference and the traveling exhibition, which frankly on its own is worth coming and spending a lot of time. So I'm trying to see how much I can visit here until it goes next week, because the relics of a being are like being in the presence. So to get this here in Delhi, all the way from Zonkachoden and Munshiganj and Bangladesh and everything, it's extraordinary. So thank you so much to all the organizers for this opportunity. And as always, with Tyndall and dependent origination, I think the one to be most benefited is me. In preparing for this, I learned so much, and I just had so much joy. And one thing I want to preface, this presentation has maps, because when I was asked to speak about Master Atisa's travels, I wanted to show you what areas he covered. So I want to preface this as a geopolitical scholar and international relations person, recognizing the sensitivity of maps, that none of these maps are cartographically or politically representative in that sense, what I'm illustrating here. And I've really had to piece them together from many sources. So one area of research for somebody in the future is to make, one of those maps of Master Atisa's life and religious spots. So please, I put that up front, the proviso, because, these are very sensitive things. Maps are political. So I'm not showing them for that purpose. I'm showing them for the purpose of showing how his journeys are really the deeds of a great bodhisattva. So Master Srijana, legendary Nalanda scholar, practitioner, born during a unique and fecund time for Buddhism in East India, that of the revival Pala dynasties of Bihar and Bengal. And Professor Madhumita, and previously in my previous life as an economist, all my best scholar friends are Bengali. So I'm going to show a little bit of bias and say that they really are intrepid in their travels and their intellectual curiosity. The Pala dynasty, fervent, generous patrons of the Buddha's teachings, monastic communities, and scholastic universities such as Vikramshila. And Bengal was at the crossroads of an international trade route connecting Assam, Burma, the ancient Buddhist pilgrimage sites of Magad, including Vajra, Asan, Dorje Den, as the Tibetans call it, today's Bodh Gaya. And the Bay of Bengal was also central to maritime Buddhist Asia, with direct maritime routes to harbors in South and Southeast Asia. So today, when we talk about India using, or not using, but really acknowledging the soft power possibilities of Buddhism, this is something we can also be inspired by. Born in Bikrampur, present-day Munshiganj district of central Bangladesh. And here, Dr. Shashi Bala's, I used her books, images, and I have cited them. So, and these initial maps are from Google Maps. So I just wanted to show where he's born, where he goes, and where he moves around. Study and later teaching in present-day Bihar. So we heard from Dr. Venerable Pooja Dabral, who's teaching at Nalanda University. So his beat, so to speak. He goes between Vikramshila University, so that's going this ways from Bangladesh, westwards, and then between Dojiden, Bodh Gaya, and Nalanda, Rajgir, he's like, so, he's spending a lot of time in that area. So he's born into the same royal lineage as the Indian master Acharya Shantarakshita, who established monasticism in Tibet during the 8th century, established Samye monastery, and also the Mool Sravastivadan tradition. Child prodigy, as we heard yesterday, prodigy, who by 6 years could differentiate Buddhist, non-Buddhist tenets, Siddhant. By 15 years could defeat Tirthikas in debate. At 10 years, he met his teacher Jitari, a lay Buddhist scholar and master of Tantra, who also taught at the monastery of Vikramshila. He took refuge in the Three Jewels, received initial teachings on bodhicitta from him. At 12 years, he met the scholar monk teacher Bodhibhadra at the monastic university of Nalanda, took further teachings on bodhicitta, and was encouraged by him to renounce his kingdom and become a fully ordained monk. As Venerable Chodin said yesterday, he was talking about him being surrounded by these yogis and practitioners who also kind of, encourage him in the journey. Subsequently, he met the teacher Vidya Kokila, a monk living in the retreat to the north of Nalanda. He upheld Madhyamika teachings in the lineage of Arya Nagarjuna and Acharya Chandrakriti and gave specific guidance on the view of emptiness. So this is all in this area that he's going up and down with these teachers. Next, he visited the tantric yogi Avadhutipa, who lived to the south of the Black Mountain near Rajgir. That's north of, there where I showed you of Bodh Gaya. Studying with him for 6 years until the age 18, who inter alia gave him initiations into Tantra. And these are all inter alia because he takes all sorts of teachings from all of them. He returns to get his parents' permission to renounce his kingdom, quickly returns to his teacher Avadhutipa, later training with the tantric yogi Rahula Gupta Vajra at the Black Mountain Temple, getting initiated into He Vajra's mandala and getting extensive teachings on Tantra from the age of 21 to 29. Now, this same teacher dissuades him from the life of a tantric yoga in a particular tradition, solely as that, in favor and with certain implications, which I don't know enough about to talk here, in favor of monasticism, also encouraged by his tutelary deity Aryatara, and in many other visions of Sri Heruka, Demchok, and even the Buddha Shakyamuni himself, as well as Bodhisattva Maitreya. With this teacher's encouragement, he became ordained into the Mahasamgika ordination lineage at the age of 29 at Mati Vihara in Bodh Gaya, Dojiden, receiving the ordination name Dipankara Srijana. And Atisa is a name he is given later as the Great One when he's in Tibet. And what is most moving is that the accounts of his life that remain now are all Tibetan accounts. Look at the cosmopolitanism we are talking about. He then studied the extent of Buddhist knowledge with 157 spiritual teachers. And I looked into what Geshe-la was saying yesterday. I think they were not lineage masters. All the bios of him actually mentioned 157 teachers. Again, he was circling in Vikramshila University and that monastery and that region. During his extensive studies, this question started coming to him again and again: how and what is the quickest path to Buddhahood? So the teacher Rahula Gupta shares that if one has direct visions of one's yidam, so on, tantric accomplishments, it means nothing if you don't have bodhicitta, which is the mind aspiring to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. Circumambulating in Mahabodhi temple, he overhears two women talking of the quickest path to enlightenment. One asks the other, what is that one method? And the other responds, training in bodhicitta. Near a stone wall built by Arya Nagarjuna, he again overhears an older woman telling a younger one that if one quickly wishes to attain Buddhahood, one should train in bodhicitta. So this reinforces his commitment to produce and expand the awakening mind. He seeks out then a qualified teacher who completely possessed the special instructions on how to realize bodhicitta, which is a very specific two methods. This chart can be attributed to Tenzin Doma from my co-classmate in Tibet House master's course. So these two lineages, Rinpoche was discussing yesterday that why such a being who already had such special connection, why he needed perhaps, or why did he go to meet Lama Serlingpa. So I think we see here, and Venerable Dr. Pooja Dabral also talked about these two lineages. These two lineages, the confluence first is Lama Serlingpa in Indonesia. So Then he travels to present-day Jambi, where my co-panelist also has activities, and I hope both my co-panelists invite me to visit them because I really want to go to these places. The Golden Isle of Sumatra, Indonesia. And this is 6 days, 7 hours in today's Indigo flights and their routes. In that time, it was 13 months of deeply perilous journey. He takes 125 students. There are many wonderful stories of how he gets there, just about. Then, to yesterday's question of teacher and student, he spends 2 weeks before he actually approaches Lama Selingpa. He doesn't just rush there, you know. Many lifetimes of connection, as Rinpoche, Serkong Rinpoche mentioned. He then spends 12 years with Lama Selingpa. And Pabongka Rinpoche in Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand suggests that despite being born so compassionate that Master Atisa is willing to undergo such struggles to get teachings on bodhicitta suggests its status as the trunk of the Mahayana path. Now, we discussed a lot yesterday, and I want to bring this up here. In today's 21st century practice, whether it is of Buddhism or any other ism, Marxism or anything else, open-minded scholar and practitioner, as well as genuinely curious dialectical debate, because although Master Atisa is the holder of the final Madhyamika view of Arya Nagarjuna, and Lama Selingpa, his teacher, is of mind-only Yogacharya, Master Atisa composes an entry to the two truths to convince Lama Selingpa of his view, even while keeping him on the crown of his head for the whole life as the foremost teacher who taught him bodhicitta. I would like to see people today in modern scholarship or traditional fields of study who can be this open-minded. Then he goes back to Vikramshila, Bihar. And now these maps I just want to show you. So he goes back there, then he spends years, then he takes a route via Nepal into that time Tibet. We are talking 1100 years, 1000 years back. He is welcomed very warmly by Jangcho Bo's entourage there. And we know the story of these. I'm rushing because I need to finish this. So the two, Lama Yeshe Bo, the king of Nari, did much to, his ancestors did much to establish Buddhism and all this. But by the time of Lama Yeshe Bo, Buddhism had gone into decline. There was particularly contradiction of whether Sutra and Tantra can be practiced together. And of course, the renowned story of Yeshe Wo sends 21 students to study in India, of whom only 2 survived, Lotsawa Rinchen Sangpo, and then later, this Yeshe Wo literally gives up his life in order to enable his nephew Jangcho Bo to use the gold collected for his ransom to invite Master Atisa to India. Now, Master Atisa again consults his tutelary deity Aryatara, who tells him his lifespan would be cut, but by 20 years. But he should still go to Tibet because he'll benefit a great many beings and the Dharma, as well as meet his lay student of many, many lifetimes. So now there are conflicting accounts, as Geshe Thapkela was talking yesterday, that whether he left for Tibet at the age of 60 and stayed there until 72, or is also confirmed in His Holiness's message yesterday, whether he spent a total of 17 years in Tibet, 3 years in Western Tibet's Nari region, 9 in central Nyatang region, passing away there, and then remaining and traveling in between. So now all these maps, if you look to the extreme west, those are the areas. He goes through Nepal into those areas, and then those paths. So he's in this, sort of western, southern, western, and central Tibet. And these different maps, this is also thanks to Geshe Thapkela. This is the only sort of religious map of his journeys. So he travels from this eastern spot right up until going to central Tibet. So Nethang is just southwest of Lhasa. Then he goes to Samye, which is southeast. And then he goes, then he stays in Nethang for very long and he passes away. His heart disciple, Dontoma Gelwe Jugne. These images are from Root Institute, Bodh Gaya. Then his travels and stay in central Tibet with final years. And here, just to share that, then after he passes away, the Kadam school that comes up. So I want to say here that basically 2 things are illustrated from the life journeys of Master Atisa. Number 1, that his perilous journey to Jambi, this is showing a moon and Vajra, it's my mother's painting. Om Sarva Yoga Chitta Upatayame, what we talked about, the meditation on combining conventional and ultimate bodhicitta, which is in the Blaze of Non-Dual Bodhicittas, the Tibet House publication that has been produced for 20 years. Venerable Geshe Dorji Damdillah has been so kind. And the second thing is that, he goes to Tibet, even though this is also my mother's painting. He goes to Tibet, even though his life is going to be shortened by 20 years. And I want to point out here one thing that struck me yesterday in all the Tibetan monastic and Rinpoche's presentations, that as a high scholar and very learned Pandit, he takes the teachings from a high elite pedestal of scholarship to the people directly, making it easy for practice, whether it's Bodhipad Pradeep, lamp for the path to enlightenment, to refuge and Bodhicitta verses, water offerings practice, much else that spread across the whole of Tibet. We saw in those maps the rest of Tibet, Kham, and all these are much. Yet today, Atisha's things last. The other thing, posthumous establishment of the Kadam lineage, which spreads northeast of Nethang and this thing. So it goes, Reting Monastery and all was set up by Dontom later. And then these are Geshe Langri Thangpa, Geshe Chekawa, amazing scholars of mind training. This is, I shouldn't show this image, but this is the personal Kadam Stupa of Master Atisha at Lama Camp 4 in Moongod. It is not very well known, but if anyone wants to go and pay homage. And I will end by saying that J. Tsongkhapa says, a life story like Atisha's delights the intelligent because it inspires them to practice, while only fools are enthralled by common tales of wonders and marvels. And so his external and internal cosmopolitanism, non-sectarianism, open-mindedness of a scholar, yogi, practitioner of love and compassion holds many lessons for us today. May all beings be benefited. I'm sorry for going over a bit. These are my citations, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Venerable Professor Kaveri La, for your incredible presentation and for sharing your perspective, especially from a geopolitical perspective, and for taking us on a journey. It really did feel like a virtual pilgrimage of some kind. And also, you know, having these maps, right, to really look at the locations where he's traveled and to even get a sense of, you know, how widespread his travel and his journey was. So it really did feel like we were taken back in time. And also to see, you know, every place that he did travel, there was so much intention, right? There was a very specific intention that is of very great spiritual significance. So thank you very much for sharing your journey, your travel journey, and taking us on a virtual pilgrimage with us. So now I'd like to invite our next speaker, Dr. Elizabeth, for your presentation. I think you're all aware of the schedule by now, so we'll have 20 minutes for the presentations, and then we'll have time for question and answer at the end. 20 minutes.
20
yeah.
minutes, okay. So, good morning, noble, venerable assembly. I want to express my profound gratitude to the organizers and also my great joy to be invited today, this morning, to share with you what's happening nowadays in Muara Jambi, the place where Atisha studied with Selingpa for 12 years in Indonesia. So, dreams from the Golden Island. Next, where is next? This is next from here, yeah? Oh, here, okay. So in this session, focusing on travels, I will not speak about Atisha's journey, but about the peregrination of his relics and the power of their blessings from Tibet, where Atisha passed away in 1054, back to his dearest guru's land, Indonesia, a millennium later. In 1997, 3 years after a trek through Zanskar in the Indian Himalayas, some of Atisha's relics were offered to me by Venerable Sudananda, the abbot of the Buddha Dhammarajika Monastery in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Venerable Sudananda welcomed me with the following story. Atisha's relics were kept for centuries in a stupa in Tibet until 1959 or so. Yeah. Thanks to Prime Minister Chun Lain, one of the few monasteries that were spared by the Chinese invasion was Atisha's Nyetang Monastery. Atisha's ashes were brought to Beijing and displayed at the National Museum. In 1963, during the Vietnam War, Chunlin invited several Buddhist monks from different Asian countries to a peace roundtable. Venerable Visuddhananda, so the senior from Dhaka, saw Atisha's relics at the museum and requested that the Prime Minister return the precious ashes to Atisha's birthplace, Bangladesh. Chunlin agreed to the request. In 1978, the government of China officially returned half of Atisha's relics to the government of Bangladesh. The precious relics were entrusted to Buddha Dhammarajika Monastery. In April 30, 2000, at the request of the Tibetan government in Dharamsala, I presented Atisha's relics to His Holiness the Dalai Lama on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of his arrival in exile in Maklukanj, India. I kept just a pinch of Atisha's ashes as a memento. I recalled Atisha's word in his summary of the means for accomplishing the Mahayana path. The time will soon come when even one's name will not be remembered in anyone's mind. Even the smallest trace of the ashes of one's bone will not remain. Ashes may not remain, but surprisingly, 3 decades later, their powerful blessing has helped restore the voice to the mute ruins of a prestigious, forgotten, ancient monastic university, Muara Jambi, on the island of Sumatra, Indonesia. The holy ashes have also granted a global voice to the local village communities for whom this sacred site is their home. In July 2009, Venerable Tenzin Dakpa, ritual master at Namyang Monastery in Dharamsala, visited my home in Yogyakarta. He encouraged me to go to Muara Jambi and to continue my quest. At that time, I never heard about Muara Jambi, honestly. In November 2010, only a few days after the big eruption of Mount Merapi near Borobudur in Java, the Jambi provincial government organized a seminar on Muara Jambi as a tentative candidate for a UNESCO World Heritage. Upon the recommendation of Bante Panyavaro, the abbot of Mendut Monastery near Borobudur, I was invited to speak about Atisha's journey from India to Sumatra, as recorded in a Tibetan manuscript entitled The Liberation Story of Masters Atisha's Meeting with the Peerless Selingpa, Dharmakirti. At that time, this manuscript was still ignored or dismissed by archaeologists. Only Tibetan lamas and few Chinese Buddhists from Singapore and Indonesia acknowledge the spiritual lineage between Sumatra and Tibet. After the eruption, Bante Panyavaro himself had taken refuge in another monastery on the north coast of Java, as the roof of his vihara had collapsed under the weight of volcanic ash that, soaked by heavy rains, had hardened like cement. He sent me a short message: "See the power of ashes." During the seminar in the city of Jambi, one of the most brilliant presentations was given by Professor Mundarjito, a senior archaeologist from Universitas Indonesia, Jakarta. He described the site of Muara Jambi as a green university, which campus extended over 4,000 hectares, with its vast network of canals connecting the 84 or more faculties and the rainforest acting as an orchard, a library, a living pharmacy, and a heaven for meditation. To reveal what he described as the identity card of Indonesia, he called for a multidisciplinary approach involving archaeologists, historians, environmentalists, artists, spiritual masters, and last but not least, the local village communities living on the site with their ancestral wisdom. At the end of the seminar, I was approached by a young poet named Borju, along with several of his friends, all Muslims and residents of Muara Jambi. They invited me to visit their village built on stilts along the Batanghari River, the longest river in Sumatra. The orchard planted with cacao and durian trees extend over 2,000 hectares on the ruins of the Buddhist university. To my great surprise, they were perfectly aware of the spiritual lineage between Sumatra and Tibet. This is how we began to work together. Borju and his friends were deeply moved by Professor Mondargisto's speech. It suddenly freed them from the stigma of being outcast, outlaws, ignorant farmers, labels imposed on them by local authorities and academia. It clearly granted them both the duty and legitimacy to continue their commitment to explore, preserve, and develop the intangible wealth of their home, the Muarajambi site. From that moment on, they began to dig into their own history. In 2012, they founded a community, first named Padmasana, then Ruma Menapu in 2019. Oral traditions passed down from the ancestors serve as the alternative excavation tools. Their grandparents told them how their ancestors were lepers, treated as outcasts by the neighboring villages. They were driven into the depths of a forest full of haunted ruins, a cursed place abandoned for centuries, Muarajambi. What tragedy must have taken place for this prestigious monastic university at the crossroad of the Buddhist sea route to become a dump for lepers? Muarajambi as a university flourished at least until the 13th or 14th century, as evidenced by the magnificent statue of Prajna Paramita discovered on the site and dated to that period. To celebrate the memory of their leprous ancestors, the members of Ruma Menapo community now create tormented masks from dried pumpkins and use them in a contemporary dance performed by the village girls. Through this mask dance, they also celebrate the glory of another leper, Dromtompa, Atisa's principal disciple. According to a Tibetan oral tradition, Dromtompa was so deeply moved by the stigma and exclusion faced by lepers in his country that he devoted the final part of his life to caring for them and eventually died of the disease himself. In a hymn of praise to his teacher, Dromtompa sings of the methods for curing lepers given to him by Atisa. People who caught leprosy from the nagas of the earth constantly entered your cycle of protection against this deadly disease. And you gave a remedy to these transmigrators. To you, Atisa, known as the second Nagarjuna, I offer supplication. This legacy of leprosy is not the only bond the villagers of Muarajambi share with their Tibetan cousins. They also have in common the use of a remarkable tree called Pohon Kembang Parang, the chopper tree named for its long blade-shaped pods containing large white seeds resembling skill petals. They wave these petals into garlands to welcome their guests. Tibetans call these flowers Metok Zambaka and use them as symbolic keys to enter the mandala during tantric ritual. Atisa had many teachers, but all his biographies report that at the mere mention of Selingpa, his eyes filled with tears. But who was Selingpa? Selingpa was the son of a king, but like Borju and his friends, he was a child of Surnadvadvipa, the Golden Island. He was a Buddhist, they are Muslim. He spoke old Malay, they speak modern Malay. He wrote shloka in Sanskrit. They recite Soloko in Malay. Through its public archaeology program, the Ruma Menapo community encouraged the villagers of Muarajambi not to sell the ancient artifacts they uncover while digging for sand along the riverbanks. Instead, they rescue and identify these treasures, ancient Chinese coins and ceramics, small statues of meditators and strips of copper engraved with mantras in Sanskrit, Old Javanese, and Old Malay. These strips of copper found in the Batanghari River is inscribed with a healing mantra which invokes the betel leaf that the villagers grow and consume every day to treat disease. The community has already identified more than 180 wild medicinal plants growing around the site and they conduct a program to preserve them. They are guided by the life of Selingpa, who mastered the knowledge of the forest plant with incantation and rituals. Guard the earth and heal the people, stop epidemics and destroy the yaksha spirits, treat the grass the way the trees are treated. Alas, the Batanghari River has become a dumping ground for the waste of our modern world. In 2011, the Indonesian president paid an official visit. His wife planted a Bodhi tree that her father, who had served as ambassador to India in the 1950s, had received as a gift from Nehru. A few months later, in March 2012, Muara Jambi was declared a national heritage site. But until today, on the opposite shore, where 3 or more temples complex stand, open-air coal stockpiles pollute the water and their dust erode the precious archaeological remains. Through art and education, Rumah Menapo community seeks to peacefully face these challenges. Dreams of the Golden Island was published in 2018 in 4 languages, illustrated by the young artist of Rumah Menapo community. In this collective book, the Buddhist past and the Muslim present resonate with one another, revealing deep continuities of faith, reverence, and learning. The title of the book was inspired by Venerable Tenzin Dakpa visit to Muara Jambi in May 2012. He explained why he had traveled so far. Since my childhood, I have studied Atisha's life and teachings. I dream of Survanadvipa, the Golden Island, which I believed to be imaginary. And now here I am. It was not a dream. This is the visit of Indian ambassador in 2024. The book inspired Indonesian director Nyadinata to create, in collaboration with Ministry of Education and Culture, her documentary Unearthing Muara Jambi, which rekindles the ancient connection between Muara Jambi, Nalanda, and Tibet. The film premiered at the foot of Borobudur on the eve of Waisak 2023, bearing the additional subtitle, Listening to the Wisdom of Indonesian Ancestors, that ultimately gave birth to the masterpiece of Borobudur. Borju and his friend have now built a community center, Graha Menapo, open to school children, Buddhist pilgrims, local Muslim communities, artists, meditators, and researchers. One of the very first students of Graha Menapo is the daughter of Borju. As a clairvoyant Muslim, he named her Prajna Paramita. Among the many activities of Graha Menapo, the free informal School of the Universe produced educational videos of field trips and workshops with the local children and teenagers to develop peace with oneself, with others, and with the environment, such as Mandala of a Plate of Rice about interdependence. And the last one is about the good use of AI. AI is the puppet, we are the puppeteers. This shadow play is dedicated to Atisha's Tonglang teaching, rendered in Indonesian as terima kasih, receiving and giving, or simply thank you. Receive all the sufferings of others and give them all your happiness. And one more dream from the Golden Island. After a brief retreat at Tabo Monastery in the high valleys of Spiti, under the kind guidance of Serkong Rinpoche, I shared an aspiration with Borju and his friends. 1,000 years ago, Atisha wove a bridge of compassion and wisdom between the Indonesian archipelago and the Himalayas. Today, let us awaken that ancient thread by twinning the school of Tabo and Muara Jambi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elizabeth, for your amazing presentation on the dreams from the Golden Island. And it was really incredible to hear about the journey that the relics, first you shared about the journey that the relics had taken. And it really seemed like, you know, these relics, even after, even though Atisha is not with us today, the relics are continuing to travel, right, around the world in the footsteps of Atisha. And then you also spoke about how some of the members in that community were treated as outcasts and how they are able now to find meaning, right? And also about the magnificent statue of Prajna Paramita. And it was very interesting to see how, 1,000 years later, the culture and the language has changed in Mora Jambi. But then, since the time of Sri Lanka, but then, even though there is this inevitable change, but then again, the community members are, looking back into their history and also finding more about the past and finding meaning. And also, thank you very much for sharing about this term, terima kashi, which relates to terima kashi, which relates to tonglen, right? Meaning tonglen, on the practice of taking suffering and giving happiness. So we learned a lot from your presentation. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to invite our next speaker, Miss Nazneen. So you have 20 minutes, and then after this presentation, we'll have some time for question and answers.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. I came from Bangladesh. Bangladesh is my home country. I'm very much lucky and very much honored that today I'm here for Atisa Dipankara, who is a great philosopher, teacher. He born Bangladesh, Bikrampur, Vajrajogini village. First, I want to give thanks to Ken Shivarthaji and his team, and also IIC. They gave me invitation to attend this program. This is a scholars program. The house is full of scholars. I am not scholar. Basically, my profession is an interior designer. Last 20 years, I am doing museum design work in my country. I work with National Museum, Army Military Museum, and some important museum outside of Haque, and many other places. First, I want to describe something very important, Atisa Dipankara's birthplace. Atisa Dipankara birthplace name is Bikrampur Vajrajogini village. If you visit now Bikrampur, what you will see? Bikrampur is a very nice, lush, green city. Is it only a city? No. Is it the capital of Bengal, ancient Bengal capital? During the Pal dynasty and Shen dynasty, Bengal led by Bikrampur. During Shen dynasty, Ballal Shen, he devoted his all religious to Ardhanarishwar. What is Ardhanarishwar? Ardhanarishwar is a half female, half male. These days, we kept a beautiful black stone sculpture in our National Museum. Actually, when I visited a few years ago, Calcutta Museum, I found very beautiful 2-3 black stone sculpture from Bikrampur, preserved very nicely. And also I found black stone sculpture at British Museum. So slowly, inside my mind, the curiosity is growing. These black stone sculptures, so integrated design, so it means Bikrampur is not a place. Bikrampur is a place of scholar, art, and sculpture. So I started visiting Bikrampur one day, another 15 days, again Bikrampur. During monsoon, Bikrampur actually wonderful. Why? Because Bikrampur is surrounded by many rivers, the branches of Padda, Kittinasha. Kittinasha in Bengali name In English, it's called Destroyer of Fame. Kitinasha move in different courses. Also Ariel Khan, also Dhaleshwari. So the Bikrampur boundaries change different time, different era. Once it was almost Faridpur and Barishal. So Bikrampur changes in different time due to the river. And the rivers are full of different types of boats and champagne. So the villagers are used to with craftsmanship. Still, the Pal descendants are arranging in Bengali month Bhadro, Julong Mela, a month-long Mela. And still, the Pal's descendants are arranging a beautiful fair, that is house fair. The Bikrampur houses are very beautiful. The houses are two-storied, but there are 4, 5, 6 posts due to river water. So these houses makes a very interest to me. So I started visiting as a designer. I started visiting, but in Bengali, I want to say something. বৃষ্টি স্নাত একদিন বিক্রমপুরে হেঁটে যাওয়ার সময় আমি মাটির ভিতর থেকে শুনতে পেলাম একজন প্রাচীন পণ্ডিতের কথা, অতীশের কথা। অতীশ বলছেন, আমি আমার অজান্তে হেঁটে যাচ্ছি, আমার পায়ের নিচে অনেক পিঁপড়া এবং অজানা প্রাণী are dying. Some insects and ants are dying. So Atish always take a stupa and forgiveness that I'm killing unconsciously small insects. So these things started curiosity to me. Then I found a real good friend. He's a historian, Nur Alam Lalin. He's a doctorate and historian, cultural activities, and he arranged some other friends to introduce me that Dr. Sufi Mustafiz, he's an archaeologist. They started digging some places because not so long, 20-25 years ago, a villager found to cultivation his field a small wooden box. Then the old people started talking in the Bajrojugini village. It is the Nastikir Bhita, means Atish homes. So the archaeologists started digging and they found very quickly, within 3 feet, within 10 feet, they found there was another construction. So there are 3 archaeological excavation points: Bajrojugini, Raghurampur, Nateshwar. Bajrojugini and Raghurampur, when they started excavation, they found 2 old boats. So it means the river course sometimes change, and that civilization or that time of Buddhist civilization may ruined by water. In our subcontinent, we are very much unfortunate for one thing. Due to Bengal, the Bangladesh is in delta. So the river comes from Himalaya long way. It brings polymati, we call slate, and rivers are changing. Due to clay, river never looks blue. It looks gray, ashes. When the sunlight comes, the river looks silver shimmering, but never blue. So we are unfortunate we did not preserved our archaeological sites like Europe. Like European people, Parthenon or Archaeopolis, the way the Greek people preserved the humidity and their weather also helped them to preserve their ancestor archaeological sites. But in Bengal, we cannot preserve this way. Bangladesh have many Buddhist bihar. You know the Paharpur, Mahastangor, and Moinamoti are very famous also. Also now these are the UNESCO heritage. I need a little help from Niharika. I want to show you something very important that is in Dhaka. This is our publication. Dhaka is just beside of river Buriganga. During 1840, this rare painting done by a British person. Now, this is preserved in British Museum. If you look, this is the Nadishwar not marked beside the Buriganga river. But after long reaching, this is not preserved. But now the British Museum is preserved this moth.
Wow.
So slowly, Buddhism, a monastery, temple, slowly comes to my heart. I'm a Muslim, but I believe in humanity, friendship, and love and compassion. So I started digging my mind and started moving with my archaeologist friend and historian friend. They help us a lot to guide me. They assigned me, I'm very much lucky, to do a small museum work at Srinagar Museum. Srinagar Museum is inside the compound of Jagannath Jomidar house. What you will see in Bikrampur, that is the most interesting thing. Hinduism, Buddhism, decline archaeology, and Muslim archaeology are coexist. Adam Shah Masjid, Shona Mandir temple, and also Atisa's honorable residence or the Nateshwar temples are under the ground. Hindus' temple and Muslim mosques are top of the ground, but under the ground of Bikrampur is Atisa's message. Atisa born 982 AD. His father name, he's a king, Sri Kallan. But nobody last 2 days mentioned this great philosopher's mother name, Sri Prabhavati, a beautiful Bangali name. When he was very young, at the 18 years, yesterday my fellow scholar Pooja mentioned, he told his father to visiting a temple. Many people are surrounded around the temple to see him. Are they follow dharma if they are as like me, wealthy and based? That time, his father, mother realized he's not normal child. He's special. So his father and his family became very much worried about their inheritance. But Atisa's teacher, yogis and tantris are guided him at the very young age. His Tara guided him in a very simple example that a elephant, if fall in a ditch, the elephant cannot recover due to his weight. So if you are surrounded by your wealthy family, you cannot be open your mind for the greater work. So he moved. Already my co-fellow, Kaveri Gill, already expressed nicely the map and his travel for learning. In Bengali, I will express 2 words. Please give me a few more times. 2 words, that is Abhibhav and Anturthan. What is Abhibhav? Abhibhav means beginners or appearance or manifestation. So when Atisa visited for study Nalanda, as my fellow scholar Pooja said, he was a student. So his appearance as a student seeking for knowledge, wisdom. But when he completed his study, then his appearance changed. He is teacher. He became a teacher. He teaches a student with simple example, dialogue, debate, with love and compassion. So again and again, Atisa appears with new example of wisdom, new thoughts of wisdom. So later he visited Tibet, request of Tibetan king. During that time, Tibet already started declined Buddhism, but his clear conception about Tantra and other things, he makes everything very clear. His wisdom, shining wisdom, clear all the Tibetan people and flourish that time again Buddhism. The second he started again the Buddhism strongly and spread it all over the Tibet. His journey is not inside a map or inside a border. His knowledge cross over the border. His knowledge does not need, like me, visa or all of us. He spread his knowledge and crossed the one boundary to another boundary. The most important thing, he carries culture from one country to another country. He born Bangladesh, Bengal, so Bengal to Greater Bengal, then India, his learning place, Nalanda, Bikramshila, Udantapuri. His teacher, Rahul Gupta, his many scholar teacher, he took his teacher's guru's message and culture from one country to another country. Now we are having a beautiful exhibition arranging by IIC. Here there are many Thanka painting. Atisa is a great person for his knowledge. Everybody said last 2 days, his wisdom, his enlightenment, the lamp to the path of enlightenment, everything. But the most important thing in his life is 3 things: discipline, wisdom, and meditation. Due to his disciplined life, he did something different, like art and crafts and culture. During Buddhism time, in India, Jakarta, Sumatra, Tibet, Nepal, including Burma and Bangladesh, the sculpture, art, Thanka painting flourish a lot. Even Atisa time, Dr. Shashibala illustrated the temples, the columns, the roof design, the architectural designer very highly symmetrically balanced. And these balance not only inside the architect, also inside the interior, how the bells are placed, how the bowls are placed, how the essence holders are placed, all are repeated, rhythmically presented. Atisa guided many sculpture work during Tibetan time when Mongols are executed many scholars, teachers, and students. So what I feel, Atisa is a great philosopher, also an architect, also an interior designer. As a museum design, I used to present past artifacts to the present gallery. Atisa always designed two things very nicely in human mind, that is wisdom and compassion. Without compassion, wisdom is worthless. So his compassion and love and wisdom, these three things, always he made a space planning inside the mind, very strong, very built column. Another one thing I want to end at my conversation, Atisa is also a great poet. His verses included in the Bengal Charjapad. Charjapad, we are not lucky enough because during Nalanda's different type of destruction, the archive destroyed. So the verses lost. But still it is in Tibet. Scholar thinkers are thinking that it can be translated for Tibetan language to Bangla, Sanskrit, or Bengali, or English. So the most important thing, the Atisa wrote many books, above 200 books, manuscript, quotation. These all are the expression of discipline. He maintained a disciplined life. That's why he can wrote so many books and so many quotation. So my last thing in Bangla again, Anturthan, is a Bengal philosophy. Actually, Anturthan means disappearance. But Atisa was not a great philosopher. Atisa is still a great philosopher. His physique disappeared, but his vision, his message always with us. And Atisa's compassion, wisdom, love is with us. Then we can avoid our world's present situation, our greediness, our discomfort, our conflict, and our war tendency, and the power hunger. This power hunger is make us crazy. So Atisa leaves us, and Atisa's message still echo in this hall and everywhere if we want to listen. একজন প্রাচীন পণ্ডিত আমাদের চারপাশে হেঁটে যাচ্ছেন, তার কথা আমরা শুনতে চেষ্টা করি। ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you very much, Ms. Nazneen, for your very insightful presentation. It was so touching and very poetic in some sense as well. And although I think we could all sit here and listen to you all day, I'm very sorry to have to kind of rush you because we do need a little bit of time. I think people may have some questions, but it was very, very insightful and so touching to hear your presentation about the scholarship, art and culture of Bikrampur, and also to meet someone from the hometown of Bangladesh. And Ms. Nazneen also has some information about Bikrampur in this book here. So if you are interested to know more about the area or about the book, please meet her during our tea time as well. And also it was quite interesting to hear about how the environment and weather can also affect archaeological sites as well, and something that's important for us to consider. It was really touching to hear about how Atisa, was born in Bangladesh and learnt in India, and then took the culture and Guru's message from one country to another, right? So really, the travel was not just of traveling, physically, but also the spread of the message, and really the travel of the heart, right, from one place to another. So we've had a very, many diverse panelists in this session today, and it's been so insightful to learn from your perspective. We heard from a geopolitical perspective, and then we heard from, a community builder, from what it's like on the ground today, and then also to hear from an interior designer. So it's been very, very insightful. So I'll open the floor for any questions. So we have about 15 minutes. So if you have any questions, please.
Thank you for wonderful presentation. My question is to Kaveri ji. When we are talking of Atisa's relation or going to Tibet, when the request came, he was in a bit of a confusion, whether he should go or he should not go. And his monastery also was not willing that he should really go that. And finally, he happened to consult Tara, with whom he had a conversation. And she advised that, yes, if he goes, it will be very good for Dharma, though his life may get shortened. And he decided to go, despite the fact that his life would get shortened. So this aspect is very important. I think if this conversation was not there, probably Atisa would have continued in Nalanda University, and he would not have gone to Tibet, and the situation would be very different. Can you just throw more light, Atisa and Tara's relationship? How did it really evolve? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ajiji, for this wonderful and beautiful question. I think, yes, exactly, as you know, the stories talk about many sort of visions and discussions he has with Arya Tara, pretty much as if she's there many times in his life from the beginning. And I think that these stories, so you're correct that basically he did take the advice because he, by that stage, is a top scholar in India. And of course, within the Nalanda scholars, that's what's so amazing. His paintings are even painted on the gates of the monasteries. Vikramshila, I think it was, I'm not sure which one. But so he's painted Arya-Nagarjuna on one side, his on the other, like to that degree. So, of course, he's the topmost scholar and everything. They are reluctant to let him go for all these reasons. But I think that life of a bodhisattva, what really struck me from yesterday and today, just thinking about it, that, normally monasteries, monastic institutions also, which are very scholastic, there is this elite notion of the pandit or the high scholar, and then it's a little bit different for the common people, right? All traditions historically across the world. So I think what Master Atisa, after Arya Tara tells him in discussion, and I think we can see the evidence today because from all the Tibetan monastic presentations yesterday and Rinpoche's and others, what struck me is that he is not really discussed as a historical figure. He's discussed as someone who has colored all parts of their practice even today. When I was looking at these maps, I was thinking Tibet is so large at that time that for things like even the refuge verse and bodhicitta verse to spread everywhere, and then not just Tibet, as our co-presenters have shared, cross boundaries, cross countries. So I think Arya Tara may have told him in that context, and I think even Arya Avalokiteshvara and all, the teacher Rahula Gupta also tells him that he should keep Arya Avalokiteshvara in his heart. And Venerable Laktollah said yesterday that the four, Buddha and these two and Achala, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of, out of the seven. But I think in terms of, like, what our last speaker has so beautifully said, Atisha lives on. And from this second effulgence of Buddhists, 1,000 years ago, his activities have pervaded the entire Mahayana Buddhist and even others. Even I read that the practice of the recitation of the Heart Sutra is set off by him. So imagine his activities and deeds till now. So then maybe the next reincarnation of Jovoje Palden Atisha came back quickly and again started off. So 20 years in this life that we know, but he's with us today, I think, because, so that would be my understanding. And all his activities, as the chair is saying, seem to be to just benefit other beings. Because as Rinpoche said yesterday, from his own biography at that age of 18 months, what he recites and how he starts, for himself, he doesn't need any of this really.
So we have one question online. People. Oh.
Thank you very much. What very wonderful panel. Congratulations to all the panelists. My question goes to Dr. Elizabeth. So Mora Jambi, I just want a little more curious about it. So Mora Jambi, like Nalanda, flourished during the same time. And archaeological site equally rich, if I'm not wrong. Just two questions that I have. Number one is there any archaeological or architectural similarities between the two sites? What have been excavated so far, number one. And number two is, it is mentioned that Mora Jambi served as a very important center for learning Sanskrit for the monks coming from China and India in those times, who used to come to Nalanda for further studies of Buddhist philosophy and other traditions. So they used to go to Mora Jambi, this temple, to learn Sanskrit, and then used to come to Nalanda. So if you can shed more light on that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your question. So the first one is there cooperation at the moment? So maybe I answer the first question first. I had no time to speak about Mora Jambi. I focus on present time. But if you go there, you will amaze. You can walk for hours, 12 kilometers, faculties after faculties after faculties. Maybe now they have mapped 90. Those are restored about 12 or 14. Endless. Each faculties has a kind of stupa, we don't know what is the center, surrounded by canals, by walls, and they are paved like, how do you say, stage in bricks. There used to be roof where the teacher would sit, and then pavement where the students will study. Each faculties has at least 3 of those stages, sometimes 5 or 6, multiplied by 90. And they are discovering more on the other shore where they have those stockpiles, you know. I mean, it's amazing what happened, yeah. But sadly, very few artifacts have been discovered. We don't know. We have the feeling with the villagers that there was a natural disaster, because no report of attacks or invasion. I mean, the Chola from India attacked Srivijaya in South Sumatra. But Muara Jambi survived 2 centuries after the attack, because 13th, 14th century, we found the Prajnaparamita statue. So please come and walk. It's very hot. It's on the equatorial line. And that was the reason, you know, because the boats from China, they had to stop waiting for the monsoon wind. So, and that was a very rich island with a powerful kingdom, Srivijaya. So they had the means to maintain a great university. And why was it was not in Palembang. People are so focused about Srivijaya. It was 300 kilometers north. And why not? We just use common sense with the villagers. Where is Oxford, Cambridge? It's not in London. Where is Harvard? It's not in New York City. I mean, the centers of studying were outside the political capital. So Palembang was a political capital, but Muara Jambi was the study center. Maybe in Palembang, there were few small universities, but the main one was. So I don't know how far now. I know they are now the Indonesian government is putting a lot of energy and money to excavate, so it's really progressing. It will take 2 centuries, I think. But I don't know how far they are working with Nalanda. Well, the movie of Niadinata, I hope it will be screened in a few days here. She went from Muarajambi to Nalanda. She met the old Nalanda and the new Nalanda, and then until the Dharamsala and His Holiness. So she really built up the connection. So that would be wonderful, of course, if there will be more, but I'm not sure about this, yeah.
Okay, so one question online here. It's an opinion as well as a question at the end. Kaveri ji today and Rinpoche ji yesterday spoke of Atisha's travels. Is my hypothesis correct? The 2 truths of Atisha showed that he already lived in Bodhicitta since early childhood. The 157 gurus and his Indonesian visit showed his humility of living in oneness. It showed the oneness of all gurus and paths. I feel the correct understanding of bodhicitta is the experience that comes through the use of buddhi. This experience is beyond all words, and Shantideva's and Nagarjuna's concepts have a oneness. Nagarjuna spoke of shunyata as absence of independent origination. The life of Atisha, in my opinion, was only designed to give evidence of this, showing that the great compassion is only the experience of oneness of dependent origination. His life is his message. His physical travels uniting teachers and territories have this subtle evidence to share. In my opinion, a true tribute to him will be to recognize the eternal subtlety of his message. Do you agree?
Does Rinpoche want to reply? I think I will just say 2 things. That, as I said yesterday in the opening comments on the live panel, I think I find the common biographies of these beings more inspirational because they suggest that we can all follow. The uncommon biographies are, of course, extraordinary. And the second thing on this, eternal, I think this, the inexpressibility of emptiness as the object versus inexpressibility of emptiness as the subject. I think we all know, as Geshe-la students at least, that the inexpressibility of emptiness as the object is what would be Arya Nagarjuna's stance. Of course, a being like this, if we look at his common biography, we are all sitting here discussing 1,000 years later. And so he had the profound lineage, vast lineage, practice lineage, and then he was doing all this in 72 years. So yes, God knows what his state, what his actual achievements. So over to Rinpoche. I am not qualified, but that's all I would say.
Sorry, I just forgot to answer the Sanskrit part shortly. Yes, at least Atisha, no, because he was a Sanskriter, but the Chinese I Ching in the 7th century, he wrote a very precise record, and he said he came to Muarajambi to study Sanskrit. And then on the way back, he stayed 6 years, I mean, it was not a short time, yeah. So.
And if I understand, I think Borobudur has similarities with Samye Monastery. Maybe the experts would, but that connection is also there.
So we just have one more question and then we'll go for a break.
My question is directed to Ms. Elizabeth. Just like in Nalanda, there are archaeological sites, a museum dedicated to Huanfang, and government's museum maintained by ASI. Are there similar facilities in Borobudur also, where you have a modern museum, archaeological sites, and a museum dedicated to Atisa?
Thank you for your question. Borobudur was built in the 8th century, starting, yeah. Later, Muarajambi was still there. When I Ching came in the 7th century, he said that there were already thousands of monks. So maybe in the 4th century it was already there. We don't know, until now. And now more and more people think that without Muarajambi, Borobudur could not have been built, because you needed scholars, great monastics studying very high concept, shunyata and everything, to be able to build it in 3-4 dimension, and with beauty, Borobudur. So I think in Borobudur they found a few remains of maybe some small centers, study centers, but not that. Can you imagine 12 kilometers? I think Borobudur was more a pilgrimage place or for common people, to learn about and to transform yourself by climbing and circumambulating, but it was due to the Muarajambi monastic university. Well, that's what now more and more people think.
So thank you very much for all the panelists today, and also for our audience as well. I think we've had a very meaningful session learning about the travels of Atisa, and we've had a kind of virtual pilgrimage. And I hope that maybe one day we may all be able to go on an actual pilgrimage to all the sites of Jo Atisa. And there are also related to the travels that we've been talking about today. There's also in the exhibition, you can also see a lot of the photos and places that he's traveled through as well. And if you have any more questions, there'll be more time during the tea and lunch times as well. So please do catch the panelists if you have any more questions. So we'll have a 30-minute break, and we'll come in at 11:30 for the next session.